Hello everyone, Ryan here. Today, I want to take you on a journey across the Atlantic, from the battlefields of the American Revolution to the storming of the Bastille in Paris. Because these two revolutions weren't just neighbors in time, they were deeply connected. But the story isn't as simple as France helping America for liberty and then copying the idea back home. Most people think the American and French revolutions were two sides of the same coin, freedom against oppression. But that's where the similarity ends. One created lasting liberty, the other unleashed chaos that would haunt the world for centuries. Today, we'll uncover why the French Revolution didn't just fail, it became the cradle of radical ideas that would later reshape history in ways most of us still underestimate. The truth is much messier, full of revenge, death, and unintended consequences. Let's dive in. To understand why France supported the American colonists, we need to go back to the 7 Years' War, what many call the first real World War. France lost badly. Britain seized Canada, stripped France of much of its empire, and left Louis XV humiliated. The French elite never forgot this wound. So when the American colonists rose up against Britain in 1775, France saw an opportunity. Not to help George Washington create a republic, but to bleed Britain. At first, support was cautious and secret. Shipments of muskets, gunpowder, and money were funneled through dummy companies like Rodriguez Hortalez. Every crate was less about freedom and more about revenge. But then came the Battle of Saratoga in 1777. The Americans actually defeated a major British army. That's when France decided this rebellion had teeth. From there, France openly allied with the colonists, sending fleets, soldiers, and the charismatic Marquis de Lafayette. For France, it wasn't about America's independence. It was about Britain's downfall. France got what it wanted. Britain humbled, America free. And Paris celebrating victories at sea and across the colonies. But victory came at a staggering cost. The French crown poured more than 1.3 billion livres into the war effort. Already drowning in debt from decades of royal extravagance, this massive expense pushed France to the edge of bankruptcy. Ironically, the very act of funding liberty abroad tightened the chains of financial crisis at home. By the 1780s, Louis XVI's government was broke, forced to raise taxes, sparking outrage among commoners and resentment among the nobility. Yet, money troubles were only part of the storm. Harvest failures drove up the price of bread, leaving hungry crowds in Paris ready to explode at any spark. Repeated attempts at reform by ministers like Turgot and Necker collapsed under noble resistance and royal indecision. Convincing many that system itself was broken. Amid this deadlock, the rising bourgeoisie, lawyers, merchants, professionals stepped forward. They had wealth and education, but little political power. And now they demanded a voice equal to their importance. When the Estates General was called in 1789, they seized the moment, giving shape and language to a revolution that others would soon fuel with fire and fury. The seeds of revolution were being sown, not by Enlightenment ideals alone, but by empty coffers, empty stomachs, and a class of men determined to break the old order. Money wasn't the only thing that crossed the Atlantic. Ideas did too. French officers like Lafayette returned home carrying more than battle scars. They carried the vision of a people rising up against monarchy and winning. The American Declaration of Independence inspired the French Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen in 1789. Still, the two revolutions weren't identical. In America, the revolution was about independence from Britain, while still preserving many old hierarchies: slavery, property rights, and elite power, because rapid upheaval could destabilize society. Social reforms, when implemented gradually, minimize chaos and disruption. Abrupt attempts to completely overturn existing structures, as seen in later radical movements, often wreak havoc on people's lives. In France, the revolution was about tearing down those hierarchies, demanding equality, and remaking society itself. The same spark lit two different fires. The American Revolution and the French Revolution started with similar sparks: injustice, oppression, and a desire for change. Yet, their paths could not have been more different. In America, the revolution was measured. Colonists fought to replace rulers, not to destroy society itself. They wrote a constitution. They sought liberty, order, and a balance of power. Freedom became a principle, not a license for chaos. France, by contrast, careened into madness. Inspired partly by the American example, the French tore apart centuries of tradition, but without any guiding framework. The king was executed. Nobles were slaughtered. Neighbor turned against neighbor. What was meant to be liberty, equality, and fraternity descended into terror and bloodshed. The French Revolution didn't just fail to protect freedom. It gave birth to radical leftist ideologies. The chaos and resentment it unleashed would later feed Karl Marx's communism, a doctrine that promised equality but delivered oppression on a global scale. What began as a cry for justice became a blueprint for radicalism, violence, and totalitarian control. A cautionary tale of what happens when revolution divorces itself from reason and morality. The American and French revolutions were bound together, but not in the way we often imagine. America lit the spark, France fanned the flames, and together they ignited an entire age of revolution. From Haiti to Latin America, the world would never be the same. So next time you think about the American Revolution, remember, it didn't just create a new nation, it helped topple an old order across the ocean. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this dive into history, make sure to like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments what part of this connection surprised you most. Until next time, I'm Ryan. See you in the next video.